I would like to welcome all of you to Temple Isaiah of Stony Brook this morning as we honor the prolific and incredible life of Rabbi Harvey Witman. For those of you who might not know me, I am Rabbi Joshua Gray, Rabbi of Temple Isaiah. I want to first thank Rabbi Whitman's family, his steadfast and amazing wife, Maddie, his children, Mike, Michelle, Danielle, of course, his beloved grandchildren, and all family and friends for giving me even a moment here to honor him today. Being relatively new to Temple Isaiah and to Long Island, I never knew Rabbi Harvey Witman or Harvey when he was physically well. I do know that I am grateful that I had the privilege to spend any time at all with this man who has been described to me as a singular Jewish educator, a Torah scholar, a loving husband, a father, a Zaidi, an inspiring colleague, so creative and wonderful, and a friend to so many. Our religious school here at Temple Isaiah is proudly named for Rabbi Harvey Witman. We bear this name knowing that we have a responsibility to maintain its lofty legacy. Rabbi Witman gave of himself to so many students, serving as the leader of our education program for more than 3 decades. Harvey's Torah, his Eitz Chaim, his tree of life, has created more branches than one could ever hope to count. While others this morning will describe many of the attributes, the stories, and intricacies that made Harvey Harvey, I know that one word always came up so consistently whenever his name came up: Ruach. Harvey was and is and will remain Ruach, or spirit personified. I am thankful I got to sing with him at the end of his physical life. I got to chant Torah with him just before he passed on Shabbat. I got to hear him sing even through weakness. I got to see his smile, so full of wit and personality. Even in the days before his death, Harvey told me to let him know if I needed anything. If I needed a word or some advice about the religious school or the temple, Rabbi Harvey Witman, even in the shadow of death, cared. He cared about others. He epitomized the Jewish idea of Lador Vador from generation to generation, not just in word, but in action. He spanned movements, he spanned denominations. He was Jewish in every sense of the word and meaning, and proud of its many dimensions. In Rabbi Harvey Witman's spirit of pluralism and Jewish connection across movements, it is my honor this morning to share the bima with Cantor Daniel Kramer and Rabbi Aaron Benson. And it is my pleasure at this time to welcome up to the bima Cantor Daniel Kramer.
We're going to sing Psalm 23. If you know the tune, please sing along. I think it could be really a lovely moment. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot sheyar bitzeni, al me menuchot yenaleini. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek, leman shemo, gam ki elech, b'gei tzalmavet, lo yirara, ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, shivtecha umishantecha, Heima yenachamoni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged zorerai, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Kosirevaya, Achtov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavati beveit Adonai Veshavti beveit Adonai liorech yamim yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 yalalai lai 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 la 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 lai yalai lai 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 yalai lai 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 Yalai, lai, 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 lai.
A Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for God's namesake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. We turn to the words of the Psalms when, at a time such as this, our own words might fail us, feeling that there's some need to express what it is that we're feeling, and oftentimes not having that capability within us in terms of what we can speak ourselves. When, however, though, we turn to the words of our tradition to replace what it is that might be in our hearts, there is often, I think, the case, the fact that those words still don't entirely capture what it is that we would want to express, because those words are not ours. There's some distance between them, not just the time from when they were written centuries or millennia ago, the language, but because we may not have that spirit within us. We may not have that connection to those words where they truly are able to be our words. I think for us today that when we encounter the Psalms and when we hear the other prayers that will be recited, we are hearing words, though, that deeply were words that came also from Harvey's spirit, from his heart as well, that he could speak those words, words of the Psalms, words of Torah, from whatever source they may have come, and to imbue with them his own personal meaning. Even if we aren't able to do that, to know that there are people who are out there, and the spirit of such people who are still with us, who can transform the teachings of the past and bring them to life and use them to inspire and to guide and to comfort us, that is why we turn to a religious tradition at any point in our lives, sad or happy. That is why we seek to know what the past has to offer to us, because there is that possibility that when presented in the right way, with love, with a twinkle in the eye, with maybe a little dry humor thrown in there, with a care and a belief that you can accomplish and that you as the student, whether that student's your child or a grandchild or a stranger, can achieve, that is the way in which we want to share the prayers that we recite. That is the way we want to bring our tradition into our lives, in the way that Harvey sought to do so throughout all of his life, throughout every moment of his life. And you'll hear that reflected in the words that will be shared with us now by members of the family who are going to eulogize Harvey. And we're going to start with his daughter, Michelle. Sorry about that.
Let's keep it. My name is Michelle. I'm Harvey's second daughter, and I have the honor of sharing a few words about my father, my Abba, or my Abs Kebabs, as I called him. As I stand here today, I reflect on the profound impact my father had on all of our lives and the values he instilled in us. Growing up, my father was a man of many layers, each revealing a different facet of his personality. He was funny, silly, serious, and sometimes sad, but always deeply loving and committed to his family. There are countless stories about him. Some were humorous, some poignant, and I really invite you all to come and share and hear them during the Shiva. Harvey and my mother Maddie provided my siblings and me with an upbringing rich in values that have guided us throughout our lives. My father's outward wit and inner depth were a beacon for us, cultivating a home that was steeped in acts of loving kindness and selflessness. He taught us that inner beauty is not inherited, but deeply developed through exposure, experience, and modeling in the home. Our home was one where you might find us rescuing bullfrogs or dissecting fetal pigs in the driveway, emblematic of my father's unique approach to education and life. He created an environment where curiosity thrived and his passion for science was contagious. And if you've ever been in a car of his, it often felt like you were driving in a science experiment. My father's dedication to Judaism was evident in every aspect of our lives. We started each morning and closed out each day with the recitation of the Shema prayer, singing a melody whose origin remains completely unknown, but deeply cherished in our entire family. From the moment we woke up reciting Modeh Ani, a morning prayer of gratitude, to the moment we sang the Shema each evening, our faith was the constant thread that wove through our daily lives. When we sang the Birkat HaMazon, the blessings after meals, followed by Zmirot, joyous songs, it was not merely a ritual. It was an extraordinary way to remind us of the blessings in our lives and to cultivate a spirit of gratitude and community. These traditions were more than just customs. They were a way of our life, anchoring us in our faith, in our liturgy, and in our community. Our home was filled with the sounds of prayers and songs, creating an environment where Jewish traditions and values were not just taught, but really lived. My father's devotion was infectious, instilling in us a deep love and respect for our heritage. Whether it was lighting the Shabbat candles, celebrating Passover Seders, or simply discussing Torah at the dinner table, every moment was an opportunity to connect with our roots and to with each other. These daily practices fostered a sense of belonging and continuity, linking us to generations past and the future. They taught us that our faith is not confined to a synagogue, but is a living, a breathing part of our everyday lives. My father's unwavering commitment to these traditions has left an indelible mark on us, shaping our identities and most definitely guiding us on our journey. My father was deeply committed to social actions. From a young age, he instilled in us the importance of giving back and standing up for what was right. Whether it was marching for Soviet Jewry, volunteering to deliver kosher food, or advocating for social justice, my father led by example. He showed us that our actions matter and that we have a responsibility to make the world a better place. And he did that not only within the Jewish community, but also at Comac High School as well. You will hear people refer to him over the course of the weekend today as Chief Yodel of the Yodel Kadodel Society, a high school club dedicated to raising money for the American Cancer Society. But it did more than that. It was a club that was easily accessible and inclusive for all students. You joined when you walked through the doors or when you were walking through the halls in between classes. Everyone was welcome, and as a result, they were actually a highly successful club, raising hundreds of dollars each year and providing a space where all students belonged. Anyone could be a member of the Yodel Kadodel Society. One story that encapsulates my father's spirit and love of engaging with others religiously is how he interacted with visitors. My father genuinely loved and looked forward to the Saturday morning knocks at our door by the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses. Unlike most, he would invite them in or say, "Hold on one moment," grab his Tanakh, and then engage with them on the porch to talk about religion. About an hour later, he'd say, "It was nice speaking with you, but I've got to run, I'm late for shul." We never saw the same person twice. They would walk right past our driveway. And while we chuckle at that encounter, he taught me to always strive to treat people kindly and with dignity, regardless of their beliefs. And this was a testament to his kindness and respect for all people. My father had an unparalleled love for Jewish music. He wasn't just a fan, he lived and breathed it. He would often slow roll up the carpool line, blasting Jewish music with the windows down, much to our teenage embarrassment. When we skied, the person riding the chairlift was always in for a treat. You'd be singing Jewish music all the way up. Maybe you'd have a game or two of Name That Tune. And when you got to the top of the mountain, he would fall off every time he attempted to disembark. But no worries, he would get right back up and ski down that mountain, continuing to belt out Hebrew songs. Our family has had countless sing-downs and sing-alongs, Name That Tune, or how many melodies can we sing that with? There were yontifs where we would wake up and travel far to synagogues to hear chazans like Sol Zim sing particular hallels. There were concerts, Safam concerts, Debbie Friedman, Craig Talman, Avram Fried, Hasidic song festivals, and we as kids were always eager and excited to go. In our family, we worked through the Amidah through songs. He taught us to pray, to daven through music. For me, I have been gifted a similar love of Jewish music. In our family, my kids know, we call it the Eulogies, when a song pierces through you, whether it be a melody or the words. A Jewish song can bring me to tears in an instant, or can throw us into an instant and lengthy dance party or hora. One of the greatest gifts I have received from my father is my deep, deep love of Jewish music. My father wasn't perfect. He had his quirks and flaws, as we all do. But his imperfections made him profoundly human and deeply relatable, teaching us that you don't have to be perfect to make a difference. You just have to care deeply and act with unwavering integrity. Even as his health declined in recent years, My father continued to inspire us. He took immense joy in listening to Jewish music, helping our daughters learn about science, hearing about our lives, our accomplishments, and the ways we carried on his legacy. His spirit remained a constant source of strength and motivation. After my father died, my cantor, Eric Schulmiller, sent me a message, and in it he wrote, "The world will be looking for another Lamed Vavnik." I chuckled at first and recalled this concept, which, in a nutshell, says that at any given time, there are always 36 righteous individuals who wander the earth. Their humility so profound that they don't even know they are one of the 36. And basically, their job is to keep the world in check. Their goodness sustains the world. And here's the cool part. Because their identities are unknown, we should treat everyone as if we are encountering a Lamed Vavnik, upon whom the world's survival and balance depend. So we should treat everyone with kindness and respect. We should strive for righteousness, living honestly and charitably, and with humility. The community's well-being depends not on personal achievement, but on moral sincerity. Kindness, righteousness, humility, and a deep, deep love of Jewish music. These are the lessons and values I am carrying forward with me today. Lech Shalom, Abba.
Thank you, Michelle. We're going to have now Alan and Avi and Ariel and Nessa are going to come up.
I've gone through about 10 drafts of this speech because, and I could do 25 more. There's simply no way, as I was sitting down to reflect on all the funny stories and experiences and times that I and his family spent with him, that it could even almost be encapsulated within 2 pages or 3-minute speech. And frankly, none of those stories tied together in any logical way whatsoever. They're just a collection of just funny, meaningful, happy moments. So you'll bear with me. We're going to go with the last draft, but I expect to ad-lib a little bit as we go, but I will know that I could write the speech 20 more times. I watched a lot of TV growing up, and when I first drove from Philadelphia to Long Island, I therefore knew full well what to expect upon meeting my then-girlfriend's father. I was certain that he would greet me at the door holding a shotgun and telling me to mind my manners. But as I'm sure you all know, that didn't happen. Instead, I was greeted by a kind, warm, welcoming, and loving human being. He was kind and thoughtful. I never remember even him being mad. He was funny and quirky in countless ways that I'm sure many of us will recount over the coming days. The only thing that ever outweighed his love of Judaism was the absolute love and pride he had for his family. It never really felt right for me to call him Harvey. I was only 19 years old when I first met him, but calling him Mr. Whitman really seemed too formal. I used to try to avoid the issue by just saying, "Hey, You. Hey. But at some point, when I stopped being able to dodge the issue any longer, we discussed how he would prefer I refer to him. True to form, his response was swift, thoughtful, and reflected a deep-seated love for Judaism. He told me to call him by his Hebrew name, Chaim, and so I did from that moment on. Having known him for approximately 30 years, and having been his son-in-law for approximately the past 24 of those years, I can candidly share with all of you that I still do not really know if the Yodel Kadobel Society is or is not a real thing. I think it is. It doesn't really matter, because frankly, it was very much a part of his quirky, funny personality. Just another one of his catchphrases, like yokel kadukul kadakal, sir, or let's go. Or his obsession with his old high school jersey number 44, even though I am informed that he really did not play that much. But when I sat down to write this, those aren't the phrases that resonate with me. Those are not what I think of when I think of Harvey. More than anything else, I think of Harvey when someone would ask him to do something, anything, his response was always the same, whether it be friends, family, co-workers, someone he met 5 seconds ago, no problem. Every time, and I remember this vividly, just every time, no problem. To me, that's the phrase that most defined him. Because underneath it all, it was always about what you wanted. It was always about what you needed. It was never about him. It never came with a fuss or a fight. It was never about his own ego or personal gain. He just wanted to help people, quietly, unassumingly, modestly. Last summer, Danielle and I took the kids on their first trip to Israel. While there, we met up with a friend of Danielle's from growing up who had made Aliyah. We were sitting down with him and eating when he told my children that Chaim had been his Hebrew school principal. He said he actually had been struggling in school, including Hebrew school, and then had transferred to Temple Isaiah's Hebrew school program. He said that Chaim saw something special in him. He told my children that Chaim was one of the few who had really believed in him, and it actually changed his life. In that very moment, I felt a tremendous swell of pride that I watched my children being told of the greatness and righteousness of their grandfather. As I stand here today, I feel a particular sadness that my children were robbed of getting to know the true Chaim of years ago. Funny, quirky, shticky. But through stories like that one and hundreds more that others have shared over the past 2 days, and I will ad-lib for a second and say the outpouring support, the social media post went out yesterday. It's amazing, and it's from everywhere. It's from Temple Isaiah, it's from North Shore, it's from Comac, it's from USY, it's everybody. And the message was always the same. He quietly, unassumingly made a difference in their lives. But for as sad as I am for what they've lost, I also feel grateful because I know that the souls of my children and all of his family are bound up with his. I know they feel the same pride in this very moment with everybody in this room for being Chaim's grandchildren as I do for being his son-in-law. The past 9 years have not been easy for anyone. In fact, they were really hard in so many ways. But what always stood out to me was the love, admiration, and kavod that his family had for him. Making sure that he had the best care was paramount, but it was always done in a way that exhibited the utmost respect for him as a person. That is a true testament to the husband, father, and human being that he was. and one that I personally reflect on all the time as a father. And I hope one day, and I use those traits, again, ad-libbing, but I use those traits as a guiding principle to try to come anywhere close to being the human being that he was. In trying to end this, I again struggled, but I thought it was fitting to make reference to a Jewish poem by Hannah Senesh. She was a Hungarian Jewish poet who was killed during the Holocaust at age 23. One of her poems is titled "There Are Stars," Yesh Kochavim, which roughly translates as follows. There are stars whose radiance is visible on earth, though they have long been extinct. There are people whose brilliance continues to light the world, even though they are no longer among the living. These lights which shine in the darkest night are those which illuminate the path for us. I think that is all Chaim ever wanted, just to illuminate the path for others. There's never been any doubt to me that he has fulfilled those goals, and that through all of us, I know he will continue to light the world, long after today, in ways that most of us will never even know.
Testing. Thank you. Hi, I'm Avi. If you've not known my grandfather Zadie, as you know, Rabbi Harvey Whitman passed away on Saturday at 4:30 in the morning. He was always so proud to be a Jewish man. He was always so kind. My grandfather Zadie had a hard early life by losing his dad right before his bar mitzvah. But I admire how he pushed past that and became a rabbi, having a Hebrew school named after him, which his grandkids called a synagogue he worked at, Temple Zadie. He also made a charity for kids who have cancer called the Eulogy Society. And he was a science teacher who really liked dissecting animals for some reason. He played football in high school as an offensive lineman wearing number 44. He told me he played quarterback apparently. He lived a long and happy life. He always put a smile on my face every time I saw him. I loved every second that I spent with him. He made me feel so special. He had 3 wonderful children, 1 boy and 2 girls. He loved them so much, just as his 7 wonderful grandchildren, 1 boy and 6 girls. We all know I'm the favorite. We always had a special bond with me being his only grandson. He cherished his family so much, he always made funny jokes. One of my favorites is, I asked him, "How are you today?" He said, "It was better before you came." He showed me the importance of being Jewish by saying Jewish songs and prayers. Some of my favorite moments with him is when I had a ball and I threw it and it accidentally landed on his private part. One time Ariel and I, my sister, gave him a middle name of Alex because he did not have a middle name growing up. So his new name was Rabbi Harvey Alex Whitman. I'm so happy that he knew me for a whole decade and I knew him for a whole decade too. I hope he's watching over us right now with a smile of joy as we celebrate his 78 long years of life. I'll keep my head up high for you. I'll follow in the path that you created for me, playing sports. As a quarterback, what you think that you played. I'll think of you every day, and I can't explain how lucky I got for you to be my role model and grandfather. You lived a long and happy life and peaceful life. I love you so much, so much, from now until forever.
It's impossible to put together words of what my grandfather truly meant to me. He's the greatest example of what living life to the fullest, kindness, selflessness, and loving his family truly meant. His unconditional love is why I loved him so much. He was without a doubt my greatest role model, supporter, and my best friend. He has shaped me into the person I've become. Whenever I saw him, he always had something new to teach me that he hoped I would use later on in life. He would always want to know what was going on in my life with hundreds of questions. When I would go over to visit him, I would go home knowing a new science fact that I would never need to know later on. I was fortunate enough to have experienced the full yodel for 5 years. I always remember he had energy, like a lot. He always had a smile on his face when I saw him, and he always loved singing Jewish songs. He loved the fact that he was on a football team, even if it was just him riding the bench. He always made sure that we knew that showing up was the most important part of life. I was grateful that his last Aliyah was at my bat mitzvah, and I was glad that he got to help teach me my Haftorah. He helped me create a better understanding of modern Judaism and why it's so important I keep up my love for Judaism. He made me grow a love for Jewish music. I hope he knows how much I love him. I will find you in each sunset. I look for you in the number 44. I will continue to feel proud about my Jewish identity. I will talk to you every night before I go to sleep, and I will hold my head up high every single day. I love you so much, and I feel so honored I'm able to call you my Zadie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Avi. That was very good. We're going to hear now from another of Harvey's grandchildren, from Karen. Oh, you do? Okay, all right. So.
My name is Karen Blumenfeld, the fourth granddaughter of Harvey Whitman, but I always called him my Zadie. My Zadie was the strongest yet most humble person I knew. He impacted so many people's lives, even if he didn't know it. So today I wanted to share how he impacted mine in the 15 years I had the honor and privilege to know him. My Zadie had been my biggest supporter since the 28th of May in 2009. For as long as I can remember, my Zadie and I had a conversation so often that it felt like deja vu. It usually started off with me with giving him a big hug because he always gave the best ones. Then he would ask me, "Karen, you're so beautiful, you know that?" And I'd say, "But you're my Zadie, it doesn't count." And he'd quickly respond to me saying, "It counts even more because I'm your Zadie." I never believed him when he said it, even though I knew he meant it. Not only did he mean it, he would also go around and telling everyone our conversation. He would tell stories and stories, whether it was about his years as a student in yeshiva and in college, years of teaching high school biology as well as Hebrew school, which we all know was a struggle to get through as a student, let alone a teacher, advising the Yodel Kadodel Society, or during his time as a rabbi, scuba diving, and stories about his children. But the one he kept retelling me and put a smile on his face for an infinite amount of time, the kind only she could recognize, was a story of how he met the love of his life. She was sitting on the steps of her house with an immense case of the chicken pox, and he was dropping off the newspaper. He saw her, a beautiful girl with curly brown hair covered with pink dots, and her name was Madeline Levine. With full confidence, I could tell you 1,000,000 times, even though everyone here probably already knows it. My Zadie loved my Gogi with his full heart, body, and soul. The number of stars in the sky would not even amount to the ardent love he had for her. When they vowed, through sickness and in health, they meant it. And that was evident from the first moment they shared together to the very last. He has shown me what true love looks like, and that I should never accept or receive anything less. Most importantly, they had to be Jewish. His devoted love for the Jewish faith was a force that was unstoppable. He and I shared a love of music, especially Jewish music. We would sing together during Hanukkah, Pesach, Shabbos, and occasionally on a random knit day. Even during his last few weeks, he could recall these Hebrew words and would blow our minds away. B'Shem Hashem Elohai Yisrael, B'Yamini Michael Usmoli Gavriel, Umilfanai Uriel, Miacharei Raphael, Va'al Roshi Shechina El. Our favorite song. B'Shem Hashem unifies Jews from the four corners of the world, our Jewish moral compass, right, left, in front, and behind us. While all of the angels are important, I'd like to focus on Uriel and Raphael, as it relates to our perception of what we can learn from our past, as well as what we make of the future. Behind us is Raphael, the angel of healing, the one who absorbs our deepest pains and grievances. However, he is not a cure for our pain and despair. Raphael is there to show us we are not alone and allows us to gradually heal in every which way. He allows us to take the time we need, but guides us to the light of Uriel. In front of us stands Uriel, the angel of light. Even though the concept and meaning of light varies between Jewish texts, I believe light illuminates the darkness that envelopes us. With the guidance of Uriel, we can look ahead to see darkness defeated by the light we create together during the most challenging of times. Knowing my Zadie, this is exactly what he would want all of us to do. A selfless man from the beginning to the very end. Every single one of you are here today to honor the life of Harvey Witman, beloved son, brother, uncle, father of three incredible souls, Danielle, Michelle, and Michael, husband of Madeline Whitman, grandfather of 6 other children, Lily, Shayna, Josie, Ariel, Avi, and Nessa. But most importantly, he was my Zadie. We didn't need to talk. All I needed from him was to be in my presence as blood cells are in a fish. Zadie, I hope to see you every day in the skies from dusk till dawn, in the stars in the night sky, in the light that shines from the sun, in the illumination of the moon, and in the fish in the sea. So, my dear Zadie, thank you for the incredibly meaningful and beautiful life you had led, and the time, wisdom, love, and strength you gave me. With all of my love,
always and forever, Karen.
Karen. Harvey's brother Roy is with us, going to say a word or two.
Hi. My brother, 2 words basically describe him: family and friends. He cared so much about his family. He cared so much about his friends. And those 2 words can basically sum it up. He spent many, many years, obviously, here. His name is on the Hebrew school. He was so proud of it. But I'll tell you some stories. I didn't write anything out. I've been driving over 20 hours. I was with my wife, Kathy, and my daughter, Laura, in northern Canada on vacation. And so I had no time to write anything out. We just stopped for gas and just got my suit and came right here. I just made it. But going back, my memories of my brother, I could tell you a few funny stories. Yeshiva, I was in kindergarten and 1st grade in the yeshiva, and it seemed he had strawberries the night before we went to school, and he broke out in hives so bad he could hardly walk. This was like ready to go home. He was in such pain, he was crawling basically. And he told me to tell the bus driver to wait up for him. Well, I told the bus driver that he already got picked up, and he got home after 2 hours I don't know how he made it home even, but his legs were 3 times the size. He found out he was allergic to strawberries at a young age. But that I remember. We moved out to Plainview, Long Island from the Bronx. We grew up on Ward Avenue in the Bronx. And we moved out to Long Island. And my memories are basically, we used to go, they built the Seafood Oyster Bay Expressway when we moved, and they were digging up all the homes, moving homes, and people left a lot of their trees. So we'd go together and we'd find some nice trees that we could carry, maybe about a half a mile. We had a wagon and we'd put soil on it and we'd plant trees for free in our yard. And I can just picture him there trying to lift up like a 100-pound tree. And I was only like 8 years old. That wasn't much of a help. But I remember that really well. And basically, I helped him. He gave me a lot of guidance in life, and one was work ethics that lives on till today with me. But his paper route, it was 1960 September. Hurricane Donna hit Long Island pretty hard. The winds were incredible, over 100 miles an hour. We had a little maple tree in the front yard, and we had to stake it down with rope, and it was blowing. I was about 60 pounds. I was blowing, and we got the tree, and we got it secured in the ground with a stake and rope so it wouldn't blow away. And we had to then deliver the Newsday route. I had to help him with the papers. My mother came out screaming, "Get in the house, get in the house," as it started pouring, and the wind was incredible. And I just remember he said, "You have to help me. We have to deliver every newspaper." So he was such a hard worker from 12 years old when he got that paper out with Newsday. And I helped him, and I got my own paper out in the Daily News as soon as I could basically get the job. And he's helped me with my work ethics. And he told me to always work hard. And that's an obligation in life, is to work hard, take care of family, take care of friends. But also growing up, We did a lot with my other brother who passed away in '97, Larry. We did a few fun things together. One was out in the state park here in Long Island. I think it was Saginaw State Park. We rented horses. We went horseback riding. I was always afraid of horses, but I asked for a horse that, was ready for the glue factory. They gave me a horse that was limping on 2 feet. But Harvey went on a horse that went into a gallop so fast, you could see him going up and down, and holding on for dear life. But it was a good time. We went on a few fishing trips. But one day, it was in the summer in August, and we started out with hot air ballooning. This is in Lake George. And we went up in a hot air balloon. After the hot air balloon, we did rafting. Saginaw River, I think it was. It was right in Lake George area. And then we went parasailing. And what was interesting about parasailing, my brother Larry was first up. And me and Harvey we were cracking up laughing. We were almost pissing in our pants. Larry's legs were like this. He couldn't stop laughing, both of us. And it was his turn next. And then me and Larry were laughing. And then I went up, and I assumed they were laughing at me. But that was a fun day, doing all three things in one day. But, I have such good memories growing up, and he was really my guiding light. So, it's going to be very sad, but, we have to move on. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Roy. And we're going to hear from Harvey's son, Michael. Oh, and Rabbi Melissa Beyer, Whitman, also.
Yeah, my father used to always call me Roy, by the way. And I'm short. Okay, so this is to kind of sum up the family section. Abba Shali, you were the best. My father was a man of many talents, as you've heard, an incredible educator. He thought of the most unique ways of engaging his students, both here at Temple Isaiah and as a biology teacher in Comac. As my daughters and my nieces know, and much to my wife's disdain, passing high school Regents test in this state, including biology, can be a bit of a pain in the ass. So when he was preparing his students for Regents, he couldn't say, this will be on the test. So they understood every time my dad would add a tie to his neck, that it signaled to the students that it was something that was very important, which eventually was going to be on the test. So let's play a game. And you've heard from everyone now within our family unit, and so we're going to test you. I want to prepare you for the Harvey Whitman Regents exam. Together, we're going to summarize all of the information you just took in, his great achievements, his legacy, his life lessons. So does everyone here have a number 2 pencil? Get ready to make sure you take your notes. Okay. Unconditional love. My Abba loved my mom and his children, as you've heard, and his grandchildren with all his heart. We are imperfect, definitely, but he did not put conditions on the love for us. Whatever we needed, he was there without hesitation. If you need proof, you simply need to look at how the love was returned to him, especially by my mother, for 9 years. He taught us how to love without limits, without conditions, with our whole heart. Forgiveness. As I mentioned before, thank you. We are all imperfect, but really, I'm the most imperfect of them all. Sometimes I have great ideas, but I don't really think them all the way through to the end. Whether it was missing a few classes and erasing the messages off my parents' machine from the administration, or renting out my parents' car illegally to other college kids for a side hustle, I started Zipcar. Or the many other things, curfews, and. Let's just say it goes on. He made sure he understood our mistakes, and he always forgave us. And it taught us the most important lesson of teshuvah and forgiveness. It's an ugly one, Abba. Pioneer. My father lived life to its fullest. He gave us the opportunity to join him on all of his adventures, from scuba diving, as you've heard. He took me to nature preserves. Oh, just kidding, I'm on the wrong one. He was a pioneer, a pluralistic Judaism. Before we had language of post-denominational, my father was insistent that we all felt comfortable in Jewish settings. We davened in different shuls. He ensured that we had profound love for Hasidic music, from Devi Friedman to Avram Fried. Jewish pluralism is the core of my identity because of him. And he chants Amin Hallel. Sorry, I jumped forward. Adventurous. My father lived a life to the fullest. He gave us opportunities on all adventures, scuba diving, nature preserves, skiing from Mexico to Israel. He instilled in us a love of the earth. He ensured we had profound awe and beauty for the bounty of our planet. He also wanted us to understand biology, which meant bringing home fetal pigs, as you've heard, and frogs for us to dissect. Those are the adventures I remember. Uncle Richie, is this right? Parenting. My father worked 2 jobs, but I never felt his absence. In my mind, he was present, he was there. I can still remember being encircled by him and his tallis while we would sit together in shul. Mensch. My dad was a man of integrity and honor. He lived his values and taught us that actions speak louder than words. He gave generously to the tzedakah. He ensured that we made it to Israel over and over again. He brought us to shul and political rallies, teaching us to fight for our people and all people. Legacy. Here it is, Abshali.
This is what you leave us. To love unconditionally, to forgive quickly and often, to be unafraid to pioneer your own path. Don't take yourself too seriously. To unapologetically live your life and take that adventure. To parent with presence, authentic and full presence. To live with integrity and honor. You taught us to strive to be a mensch.
Okay, so you've been paying attention, my dear students. I have no doubt that you will ace the Regents exam. But more importantly, if you follow the path of Rabbi Harvey Whitman, my father, Abba Shali, you will get an A this life and beyond.
As you've heard mentioned, and I imagine so many of you know the significance that Jewish music had for Harvey and continues to have for his family, we're going to have a little music in our service now, and I ask for Ross Levy to please come forward. He's going to play the song Tribute by Safam for us.
was not a saint, because no mortal man could be. But the man, he is the kind I've tried so very hard to be. For he said it does not matter what you earn or where you live, but the man, he is remembered by the way that he would give. And the man, he was a giver, and he gave with all his heart, but it pained him so to take, because he loved the giving part. So I give to you, my Father dear, in sad memoriam, that this man, he is a better man for knowing he is your son. Yitgada, ve'yitgadash, shemeh, shemeh, Rabbi. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru Amen. So I give to you, my Father dear, in sad memoriam, that this man, he is a better man for knowing he is your son.
Now I'd like to call forward to share some words with us, Alan Sax.
How can I possibly encompass in these very few minutes what having Rabbi Harvey Witman as my best friend and mentor for the past 54 years has meant to my life? I tremble with fear that I can be up to the task of describing the myriad ways that Harvey influenced me, motivated me, inspired me, truly shaped the adult me. Actually, my fear is not unlike the fear I had as a 20-year-old college senior when a school administrator led me up to room D211 in Comac High School South to meet the man who would be my cooperating teacher as I began my student teaching experience. What would life be like for me for the next 5 months with this man who, after our brief meeting, scared me with his knowledge of biology, his energy, and his poise in front of the 24 students sitting in one of his classes? In the Torah, we read how silver was collected to build items in the tabernacle in the desert. Quote, a half shekel a head, half a shekel for each one who was entered in the records from the age of 20 years up. Why a half shekel each? Why not a whole shekel? After all, this was the tabernacle being built. One explanation the rabbis give is that giving a half shekel reflects that we must partner with another to complete in unity any deed. In just the shortest of time, I realized that Harvey was my half shekel, who quickly and for 54 years partnered with me, guided me, and helped me to become the science educator, the religious school teacher, the youth group advisor, the North Shore Jewish Center congregant member, and sometimes chazan, that are all essential pieces of the man that I became, because Harvey was my conduit to each of these callings that define me. Yes, Harvey was much more than just my cooperating teacher. He has been my mentor, my best friend, my colleague, my boss, my carpool buddy, my occasional partner in crime, and along with Stewie Bernstein, we were the Three Stooges. In truth, Harvey has been more than any of these things to me. He is my brother. But now, my half shekel is gone. Did you know that David Melech, King David, passed away on Shabbat, as that holy day was the only appropriate day for him to do so? Harvey also passed away on Shabbos, which I'll take as an indication of Harvey's righteousness. In Comac High School South, Harvey was the consummate science educator, but his real gift, which he also taught me, was the ability to make learning biology effectively fun. Truly effective, but also truly fun. And so Harvey taught me how to make the school become a monkey, and the classrooms were its cells. The complex banana molecule the monkey ingested became a line of students holding hands too large to enter the cell door, the classroom. So throw some water on the students' hands and watch the banana starch molecules break, and the now individual students, given a marshmallow on a stick to hold, became glucose molecules, simple enough to enter the cell. March the marshmallow-holding students who just experienced the biological life function of digestion around the room, and transport and circulation are obvious as they move around to the student doing jumping jacks who needs more energy. So put a match to the marshmallow and watch it release its energy, the function of respiration. And what to do with that black burnt marshmallow? Excretion. I will admit that we found a more traditional blackboard-centered way of instruction when it came to the life function of reproduction. Oh, did we have fun. And when one of our students inevitably mixed up the opposite chemical reactions of hydrolysis and dehydration synthesis, a cry would ring out from the front of the classroom. If it was my student who made the mistake, the call was, "Whitman!" If Harvey's student messed up, "Sax!" could be heard through the halls. And we would walk into the other's classroom through our connecting prep room office, holding a beaker of water, and would simply say, "Who?" Then walk over to the indicated student, clear books off of his or her desk, and proceed to slowly pour the water all over the desk while calmly stating, "Hydrolysis is the addition of water to break down large molecules." Harvey always found a way to add a fun twist to the most important and serious of things. Hence the birth, as you've heard, of the Yodel-Kadodel Society. After a lesson about cancer, Harvey turned his catchphrase for students into a fundraiser for cancer charities, and eyeglass washing and shoe cleaning parties became the rage. Give $1 to cancer research and we'll clean your glasses. Thousands of dollars for cancer research, and the Yodel-Kadodel Society exists to this day at Comac High School. Of course, Harvey was just as creative when it came to teaching Jewish history here at Temple Isaiah. We didn't just watch Fiddler on the Roof. No, the kids got Russian names. They got married in a ceremony conducted in Yiddish before their parents, had a real wedding celebratory meal, which got interrupted by a pogrom, and then had to bring in their 5 most important possessions in a pillowcase and bribe the teacher guards with kopecks as they traveled around Temple Isaiah property, aka Eastern Europe, so that they could end up in steerage class, sitting on the floor inside the boat made out of overturned tables, to finally make it to America, where they were greeted by the Statue of Liberty, Stuart Bernstein, with a Hanukkah menorah held high in his hand. Between his USY leadership roles and as religious school teacher and principal, how many hundreds of kids are now dedicated Jews because of Rabbi Harvey Whitman. I could go on and on about Harvey, but let me end by quoting American rabbi, philosopher, theologian, and author, Rabbi Dr. Milton Steinberg. He said, "Death cannot be and is not the end of life. Man transcends death in many altogether naturalistic fashions. He may be immortal biologically through his children and grandchildren, in thought through the survival of his memory, in influence by virtue of the continuity of his personality as a force amongst those who come after him, and ideally through his identification with the timeless things of the Spirit. When Judaism speaks of immortality, it has in mind all these, but its primary meaning is that man contains something independent of the flesh and surviving it, his consciousness and moral capacity, his essential personality, a soul. The sacredness of human life extends to both body and soul because Hanasham alach v'haguf falach, both are the handiwork of God. We say goodbye now to Harvey in body, but not his soul. His soul, the handiwork of God, lives on in us as we remember him and live our lives as he modeled and taught us to do. Harvey, I miss you so already, but it's time for you to rest. Geh schlafen, Reb Chavela.
Yes, Alan. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. We're going to hear also from Richard Thimser.
I've already got one injury. I'm going to try to get off this pretty carefully. I'm a friend of Harvey's for little more than, it's going to be 61 years. And the kids asked me if I could say some things about our friendship, how we met, how we really truly love each other, and how Harvey over the years became my absolute dearest best friend. So much so that my wife Kathy reminded me just a little while ago, she said, I know of only two people that when you got on the phone with them, your voice changed, you like lit up no matter what happened prior, and she just knew it was either my Uncle Abe, and unfortunately he died many years ago, rest in peace, and the other was Harvey. No matter what my disposition might have been prior, just talking with Harvey, just being with Harvey, just having fun with Harvey. And Alan, everything that you said, you eliminate some of the things I'm going to say. but we just had fun together, we grew together, and I'll tell you how that happened. It's a story of friendship, and for all of you kids that called my dear friend Zadie, I hope you learn from this lesson about friendship, because it's absolutely the most wonderful thing. September of '63, we entered Buffalo State, both biology majors. We didn't know each other. Even the first couple of days of school in the same biology classes throughout our entire career in Buffalo, we had no clue that we'd become this close, this much of a dear friendship. But shortly into our first few weeks of school, Dr. Marsh, our biology teacher, biology for majors, with about 15 to 20 kids, we were a small group of kids doing this. He gave us our first exam. And we were nervous. It was our first college biology testing. Here we are biology majors. And again, I knew Harvey because I knew most of the kids now in biology. We were together. And the next class, Dr. Marsh announced the grades. He was passing out the grades. They were blue books. But he first said that there was one particular person who unfortunately lost 500 points from the test. Now, we're all in shock because 500 tests, the test is worth 100, not at Buffalo. The test could have been worth 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. We made no reason, there was no reason for that, but that's what they did. And then he announced it was Harvey that lost 500 points from his test. Why? Well, as some of you might know, and I certainly know well, it's possible Harvey may not have had, I'm sorry, buddy, he may not have had the best penmanship. As a matter of fact, at times chicken scratches were a very good competition, and you're all shaking your heads, you know. And now I sort of chuckled to myself, and this is the first time I said, I'm going to be a friend with this kid because I have lousy handwriting and I didn't lose 500 points. He's going to be my idol. And I can honestly say that from that point on, I knew I was going to become a little bit closer with Harvey. We had something in common. Now I'm going to advance a lot just to tell you how that followed up. Now we're teaching many years and we teach it together, but I'm going to go back. And I get a message on the intercom, Mr. Zemser, please come to the office. We have a question for you, blah, blah. I had no idea what it was all about. I get to the office. One of the secretaries gives me somebody that said, listen, we know you know Harvey so well. We have a paper here. He asked us to type up, for a test coming up, which the secretaries did. It was very nice. Not all the time, but it was a nice accommodation. They couldn't read half of what he wrote down. And knowing Harvey, it took me a while, but I was the official translator. So that gives you an idea of how, in some ways, we knew each other. But let me now go back to the beginnings of Buffalo. We met, we became friends, but you don't know when you're in Buffalo, you don't see each other all the time, how dear a friend we could be to one another. And then I discover that all of a sudden Harvey one day, this is a few years teaching, at Buff State, Harvey had a suitcase. It was either Thursday or Friday. And why is he carrying a suitcase to the science building? That doesn't make sense. Well, when we finally heard the story, a lot of us got a good laugh, and that's what I became to know and love Matty. He was going home for the weekend from, again, I can't go into every detail, I'll be here for much too long, but after he watered plants in the greenhouse, which he was in charge of, he had the suitcase in his hand, he schlepped across campus, he got on the bus, and then he got to Greyhound, and he went home for the weekend to visit his dear future bride. And that, increased the levels of friendship that I can have for dear Harvey. I thought that was such a wonderful thing. And it didn't go unnoticed by a handful of us from the biology department, the science department, because when he came back Sunday, Monday, typically, I don't know how he did it with his schedule, but he managed to do it. We did write him a lot about it, but his dedication to humanity was just, listen, if he schlepped that suitcase back and forth, that was terrific. Getting back to things at Buffalo and how we got to know each other even better and better, sharing all these biology classes, we had a class where we had to do an experiment, and it had to do with a rat. Now, where Harvey was in charge of the plants in the whole building, he really took care of the greenhouse. At the same time, I got a job. We were a pay job. I got a job in the animal lab. So I took care of the rats and the mice and the this and that, and it was fun. It came to a period of time where now the rats had to see their final days. And I'm not going to go through that story, I promise, unless at another time. But because of that, now step forward a little bit. We're teaching, we're in the same building. There's a story called Hammer Rat. And the kids almost know it, but again, I'm not telling you details, I promise. However, Harvey would tell his biology students in the next classroom that Mr. Zemser is Mr. Hammerat. And approximately the same time, I would tell my students, Mr. Whitman is Mr. Hammerat. And my kids would all go into his classroom, his kids would come into my classroom, yelling at Mr. Hammerat, but never derogatorily, never, I have to tell you that. We had more fun doing this, and it lasted for so many years that some of the kids called us Hammerat, for the rest of them knowing us. And the best part of that story is, without going again into too much detail, both Harvey and I, like the last couple of years we were doing this, we confessed we don't remember who the true Hammerat is. We absolutely have retold the story so many times, we forgot who was who. All right, let me go back now. More things, and my mind is racing to add, subtract, to tell. if it were not for Harvey, I don't think I'd ever met Kathy, because Kathy was Harvey was the one who said, Richie, go to Israel. We were teaching Hebrew school together, I'll get to that, and I had never been to Israel. Of course, I knew about Israel, this, that, and I went. And in one of the trips to Israel, again, it would never have been if it weren't for Harvey to say, go to Israel. That's where I met my bride, Kathy. It would not have happened without Harvey's influence to say, do this, do this, do this. And today, that's our favorite place that we can go to together. Anyway, let me go back now, backwards. I started teaching in Comac, as you now know. Harvey started teaching in Comac. We didn't know that at the very moment we signed in Comac. We each signed up separately. I was in the junior high school, he was in the high school. Then, somehow or other, I became a Hebrew school teacher at Temple Beth David in Comac. No details there. They told me one day, they asked, Richie, the principal said, we need another Hebrew school teacher. You know anybody? Harvey. I thought of Harvey. Because Harvey, a couple of years prior to that, hired me when he was the youth director at Temple Beth Shalom in Babylon. I didn't have the experience, he just knew I was a Jewish friend and I knew a little bit and so on. So what did Harvey do to prepare me for this job, along with Alan? I hope you remember this, Alan. Is I went to the house, 16 Sussex, Maddie, I'm guessing you were there for this whole thing, and Alan and Harvey together introduced me to a word, ruach, that I now is part of my life, and it's part of your lives, you know it. And they sat through, and I tape recorded on the old-fashioned reel-to-reel tape recorder. I tape recorded all of these songs that I grew in love, and to this day, that is my favorite genre of music. There's no question about it. Thanks to Harvey, Alan, putting this together, and then it became an assistant advisor youth group at Temple Beth Shalom in Babylon. Okay, thanks to Harvey. Now I'm still at Beth David, and they tell me they need a youth advisor. So they said I should apply. So I applied for the job, I became a youth advisor. But very shortly thereafter, by the way, if Harvey was looking at me right now, I swear to you, he'd say, Richard, it's a little too early for Purim. I know that. Okay. They needed a senior youth advisor. I was with the junior high school kids. They needed one. So I said, Harvey. So now, Harvey not only was, because he was teaching Hebrew with me, I got him to do that, I think I left that story, but then a youth advisor. And he was fabulous. The kids today, the ones that found out about what happened, have been texting. If you read Facebook, Maddie, you're going to see this. You'll see the wonderful, wonderful things that they've been saying. A youth group, a temple, and so on. How fabulous it was, and how they were so influenced by my dear buddy. We were youth group, and one day, all of a sudden, Harvey's not going to be teaching at Beth David. He's not going to be doing youth group at Beth David. Why? He happened to become principal here at Temple Isaiah, and where he met this wonderful Rabbi Fisher. I don't know if Rabbi Fisher is here today by any chance? I hope to see him. And you know all about Temple Isaiah. But in the interim, they discovered that there was a position for a principal at Temple Beth Shalom in Smithtown. I didn't know anything about this. Harvey said, Richie, you ought to apply. I would never, ever, ever have applied. And if it wasn't for his push, if it wasn't to say, just apply, and I became the principal. So Harvey and I now shared principalships in 2 different synagogues. I would never have done this without Harvey's influence, encouragement, and knowing that I could do it. And that was the beginning of more formalized Jewish education for me. From that, I met some wonderful, wonderful dear friends from the organization called Light, Long Island Temple Educators, and some of us are here today. And what was so great about that is Beth Shalom in Smithtown was sort of a conservative, but a very, very liberal conservative shul. Light was strictly for Reform congregations. It was Harvey's influence. Harvey did it. To say, listen, Richie works in this place, it's principal there, and it's a very, very liberal form of, as a matter of fact, we use the same texts that many Reform congregations used. Because of him, I became a member of Light. Okay, and then it became whatever, treasurer, I screwed up the books, and even chair. So it really was a history. I would not have done this without Harvey. I know I'm leaving out some stories, but it's okay, we'll fill in. But there's connections, you'll understand this. Because of light, because of being principal, Harvey, and involved in Jewish education, Harvey once, in the old car, we went to Brandeis University at a Cage conference, my first introduction to Cage. And I loved it. And then, every year after, we would go again. Somewhat halfway through our Cage conference experiences, Harvey and I were both in the Debbie Friedman Chorale, and we loved it. And part of Debbie Friedman Chorale, besides performing for the troops there, was where she always did something a little bit funky, a little bit silly, a little bit fun. And now, going back to something else, and I'll tie it all together, I hope. Go back to Carmack High School, and you've heard about Yodel Kadodel, and you heard about the silly things that might have occurred. Well, you have no idea. Those are only some of the silly things. We'll tie this together. One of the things that Debbie Friedman did one year was ask all the people in the chorale to put on a particular kind of a uniform. And now I was going to wear this, but Kathy, my wife Kathy said, I don't think you should. Little show and tell. Can you all see this? Well, I'm not walking there, that's dangerous. Pants. But these are not ordinary pants, are they? Can you see up front? Harvey and I both have these, along with some others, but we would wear these at least once a year, but not just with this. We had striped jackets that had nothing to do with this. We had ties that had nothing to do with anything else. We had shirts that had nothing to do with anything else, and we would wear this teaching next to each other. And Alan, I can't remember if you were wearing something at the time, but this is all because of the Yodel Kadodel Society, and we would wear these things the whole day. And the strange thing is, the kids didn't even think it was that weird. That's another story. But when we did that, those were some of the days that we took a piece of paper to shine your glasses, give me a buck. We took off someone's shoe, you owe us a buck for Yodel Kadodel Society, and collected money, which of course went to American Cancer Society. So these are the crazy things that we did, and other kids then, when we had these days, also dressed up for what we did. But now I'm going to tell a little side story. Again, I'm missing things and I can't help it, but this is my dear buddy Harvey. It's all his fault, okay? I have nothing to do with this except that I'm retelling it. Michael, you sent in, and Avi, in honor of you, I'm going to say testing, because I love that. That was the best. Yesterday, from this injury and with Harvey and so on, Harvey, you caused me to clean out my closet. I haven't cleaned out for years. And I pull out a t-shirt that was like this. Now, I knew it was there. I saw the color in the closet, but I didn't think anything of it. I pull it out, I'm going to reorganize it, maybe put it in the basement, not wear it, give it to charity, whatever. And I opened it up, and of course, I say, oh wow, look at that. That's Carmack High School, Carmack High School South. Great, so we had a t-shirt from high school. Then I turn it over. Maddie, this is exactly what happened. I didn't even know I still had it. Whitman 44. Now, even I know that Harvey was not the quarterback, okay? However, he loved 44, and I have to tell you that whenever I see a number 44, he made me nuts. Whenever I see a number 44, whether I'm on the road traveling, whether I know where it is, I take a picture of it. If it's 44 on mailbox, it's 40. And you have no idea how many times I see a 44 and think of my dearest, dearest friend. It's uncanny. And if I can find them in my phone, because they're all scattered, I'd be happy to show you some of them. But 44 is there, and I hope every single one of you can take 44 and see the number. You will. And also, just remember Harvey. Our friendship grew. Our friendship continued. Harvey knows stories. Harvey about me, about us, and the fun. And when you told the stories, I forgot who told the stories about travel. Alan, I think, where we traveled, or no, it was one of the kids that told the story about doing all the things in one day. Roy, you said it. Were you doing all the things in one day? You, Harvey, did something like celebrating a birthday in the summer. We went out to Laurel Lake, out on the island, My car, I was driving, we passed a big mound of dirt. We didn't know what it was, but he went scuba, I went snorkeling. And as we're there, I turn around and I see that pile of dirt is getting bigger and bigger. They were excavating the road and they were blocking the road off. I had no clue, Harvey had no clue. So we got to get the hell out of here because we're not going to be able to pass that any second. And sure enough, I barely made it out of the pathway going to Laurel Lake after that day. But the day didn't stop there. On that very same day, Harvey said, we're not going home. We went to horseback riding, we went to a farm, and at least 3 or 4 other stops, which I can't remember. So your day with Harvey was like a normal, crazy day with Harvey. And that's just a fun thing. I don't know where to end. There is no end. The only way I can say is, Harvey, with youth group, how the kids loved you and how you were filled with Ruach and how you taught me Ruach and how my Judaism is really an extension of the things that you did for me, and for that I'll forever be grateful. You'll forever be my dearest, most wonderful friend. I hope now that while you're there with the angels, you just start the first angel youth group. I can just picture this. Get him organized, singing with him, teaching them more songs than they never even knew they could have. And I just hope he's having as much fun as he possibly can have in his next adventures. And that's what I wish for him. Thank you.
Also invite forward now Steve Whitesman.
There are so many universal themes in the comments that everybody made. But let me be clear from the beginning. Harvey wasn't just a yodel. Harvey was the yodel. And more importantly, he was our yodel. We were all lucky to be a part of his frenetic refrain. Harvey was one of the humblest individuals I ever met. When he got smicha, he hesitated to use the title Rabbi, since he didn't want people to have to think he was better than they were. Now, as many of you know, I heard about Harvey years before I actually met him. In the early 1970s, I was teaching 4th grade in Smithtown, and I would often get notes addressed, "Dear Mr. Whitman." As any elementary school teacher can tell you, misspellings of their name in parent notes are not unusual. And I didn't think anything of it until the body of the note or the letter where the parents spoke about the child's difficulty with Hebrew. By the 3rd of these notes, it became clear some of my students had Mr. Whitesman in public school and Mr. Whitman in religious school. Now, when asked about Mr. Whitman, the students all told me what an incredible teacher and larger-than-life personality he was. Because he and I had mutual friends, I had the opportunity to meet Harvey a few years later and realized my students were correct. Harvey, as has been said, was a master teacher who could teach anyone anything. Well, almost anyone. There was the time in the early 1980s when he tried to teach Stu Bernstein and me to play the guitar.
he thought it would enhance our teaching. After a month of trying, he threw up his hands and commented, "You guys are impossible." That ended our musical training. Beginning to work at Temple Isaiah in 1980 only solidified my admiration for his skill as an able and wise teacher and as a superb school administrator. Harvey was always at the creative edge of religious school programming, mixing informal youth group techniques with formal classroom instruction, years before such techniques were even on the radar of Jewish organizations. In the 1980s, simulations, as Richie and a couple of others pointed out, were mostly unheard of in religious school. They became a mainstay of our regionally recognized and at the time award-winning 7th grade curriculum and enabled our 5th grade students to experience Israel from the comfort of a classroom. They've even formed the basis for comedian Ilana Glazer's routine on her religious school experience. She went through the program. The religious school was always a safe haven. Students who had difficulty in public school, whether academically or socially, were totally accepted under Harvey's leadership. Many of the school's former students have become Jewish professionals, whether rabbis like Elise Wechterman, Allison Zakharoff, my son Greg, future rabbis like Julia Bennett, Jacob Wright, numerous educators, teachers, Carla Friend, the founder of Tekiah Music, Hillel directors, kibbutzniks, Israeli citizens, numerous lay leaders, etc. All is owed to Harvey, who was a role model who infused the religious school with creative and meaningful learning experiences. Harvey encouraged his teaching staff to learn and to grow as Jewish educators. He was always giving you a book to read while advocating professional development, either through attendance at CAGE, the Coalition for the Advancement of Jewish Education, in the 1980s or 90s, or through adult education, college courses, Melton, or the Hartman Institute. 2 CAGE conferences stand out in memory. There was the one at Brandeis, it's almost legendary, where we almost got arrested. Stu Bernstein and I were kibitzing from the back seat. Though for the life of me, I can't figure out why we ever let Harvey drive. Maybe we wanted some extra prayer practice. And just as we approached the toll booth, Harvey had had enough. And he turned to us and yelled, "You guys are lucky to have jobs." The toll collector thought he was yelling at him. Quite a scene on the Mass Turnpike. The second was at the University of Maryland, when a come-sit session lasted until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And the following day, teachers from all over the United States were remarking, "Isn't that Harvey wonderful?" The answer to that question was a resounding yes. Harvey's high level of energy was infectious on both the students and the teaching staff. All the teachers wanted to keep up. Most couldn't. In his 36 years as Isaiah's educator, Harvey put together some of the strongest teaching staffs on Long Island. None of the teachers worked for Harvey. They all wanted to work with Harvey. As the teachers sitting here know, for certain topics you work for hours to decide on motivation, supporting materials, and the timing of your lessons. As Michael learned, his first day of teaching synagogue skills. Working with Harvey created a fourth dimension for all lessons. He would come into the room, walk to the back, and observe. After a few minutes, he would shyly raise his hand and say the four most dreaded words in a Temple Isaiah teacher's day. Can I say something? In that instant, you knew your well-planned lesson was a thing of the past. A half hour later, Harvey would turn the class back to you, having taught the subject better than you ever could. In everything he did, he always emphasized Menschlichkeit, Yiddishkeit, fostering tikkun olam, and a sense of b'yachad. We're all in this together. In 1987, in the journal honoring Harvey, the congregation's then rabbi, now Rabbi Emeritus Adam Fisher, commented, "Harvey Whitman is a loved and respected and considered friend by his students, their parents, and the faculty as well. He has created one of the finest religious schools in the New York area and is himself an important model for all of what it means to be a Jew in our time." Almost 40 years later, it's all still true. As I commented in a bulletin article when the religious school was named in his honor, all that Harvey was and has meant to the temple can be summed up in the Danny Siegel poem, "And God Braided Eve's Hair." If you always assume the man sitting next to you is the Messiah, waiting for some simple human kindness, you will soon come to weigh your words and watch your hands. And if he so chooses not to reveal himself in your time, it will not matter. I am humbled, honored, and consider myself blessed and fortunate to have been a member of Harvey's teaching staff for 35 years. Been privileged to follow him as the principal of Temple Isaiah's Rabbi Harvey Whitman Religious School, and most importantly, to have been his friend. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek.
And Danny Gowens.
Okay. For me to speak about my dear friend Harvey, I think I would need at least 2 weeks up here. So what I'm trying to do is encapsulate that as best my ability, and I'd have to say that listening to all the accolades, these are very hard acts to follow. But let me start with how Harvey and I came to be. I was a student in Comac Public Schools, and I had the good fortune of knowing and meeting some very wonderful teachers. One of them here, Richard Zemser, from my junior high school days, is one of them. So as I approach my 70th birthday, I look back and I say, who were the people in my life that had the greatest impact? Now, being the eldest child of a family of 3, I didn't have the luxury of having an older brother. Harvey, over the years, became that brother that I never had. It was September of 1970, high school biology class. I got my assignment. Report to room D211, as Alan Sax had mentioned. That was Harvey's classroom. So I show up, and within a few days, light bulbs went off in my head. I felt motivated. I felt thrilled with biology. I'd always liked science, but Harvey was like rocket fuel, jet fuel, to a kid that really enjoyed science and wanted to learn more. So 54 years ago, that started our relationship. And coincidentally, Alan Sax, as you've heard before, was a student teacher. So the three of us came together at the same time. Now, this is a story I've told many times, but I never get tired of sharing it with people. So the three of us sort of were forged in room D211 for a lifetime friendship. Now, I had some things written down before, and I thought what would be the best way to summarize my relationship and what Harvey has meant to me. So I put those aside and I said, let me speak from the heart, okay? Let me speak from the heart, some serious and some humorous. So as I went through high school, Harvey had asked me to be his assistant in the laboratory. So in addition to being a student in 10th grade, I became his assistant, and I helped him set up labs during my free periods. But the more I got to know him, the more I wanted to emulate him. And you know from teachers that you've had experiences with, from a teacher's point of view, there's nothing more rewarding than motivating and stimulating someone else to go into the profession. So I became a teacher of physics, chemistry, and biology, mainly because of Harvey. Because when I looked at his life, I said, I want to be like him and to have what he has. He had a wonderful wife, beautiful home in Stony Brook. He had time off in the summer, and I said, I want that too. And there can be no greater tribute. And over the years, as I taught many students, they would come back and say to me, thank you for doing this. You meant a lot to me. You motivated me to go into the sciences, etc. And that means a lot to a teacher. So this day is not an easy day. Today, you're listening to the cognitive Dan. But very shortly after this, the affective Dan is going to take hold, and that's going to be a tough one. Now, some other nice things. Harvey took up scuba diving in 1974, and being somewhat of an aquaphile myself, I had a mask and a snorkel, and I always liked being in the water, but because my teacher did it, I had to do it too. So I got certified as a diver shortly thereafter. And Harvey and I planned a trip. In 1975, we decided to go down to the Florida Keys. And being that budgets were tight, you know, teachers a lot of times have tight budgets, so we had to economize. So what we decided to do is rent a tent. So we packed up this tent, we got transportation to JFK, and we flew down into Miami, where we rented a Ford Pinto station wagon, and we pushed this tent in there, and we decided to drive down to Key Largo, Isle Morada, all the way to Key West. So we stopped at Key Largo, we pitched the tent, and back then it was $3 for the evening. And it was nice, it was really nice. The ground was a little bit bumpy, so we had sleeping bags, etc. So it was getting a little bit dark out, and Harvey disappears. So I'm wondering, where did he go? So he shows up shortly thereafter with a tuna fish sandwich and 2 beers. So I didn't ask him, where did you go? I asked him, well, how did you do that? I want you to show me that. So he was the kind of guy that seemed to people gravitated to, and they liked him. So I'm doing kind of a stream of consciousness because these are some things that really I remember very, very fondly. So we had continued to do all kinds of diving here on Long Island, in Bonaire and Cozumel over the years, and it was quite an adventure. Now, one of the things, too, that I think back, and again, this is a stream of consciousness, I decided to scrap the handwritten speeches, but what he has done for me, when we talk about passing on a legacy to our children, etc., but he passed his legacy on to me, okay? And through his methodologies, I passed some of him on to my students. So we can say that a lot of Harvey lives in me as a teacher, but a lot of Harvey lives in the students that I had as a teacher, when I was a teacher. So I thank you very much for that, Harvey. Now, Richie, those pants that you took out, do you still have them? Okay. Funny thing is, when Harvey and Richie retired, I went to their retirement party at the Hamlet in Comac, and as they had come up together, they kind of did a duet. They put on those pants. Do you remember that outfit? And I said, what in the world is he doing? So it was another very, very Harvey-like, spontaneous demonstration of who he really was. But I could go on and on and on, and I really do believe that he's not gone. He's just simply away for a while, and we will see him again. And I can't thank him enough for being the kind of person that I was fortunate enough to encounter in my public school education and in my personal life. So thank you, my friend, for everything. The hole in my heart is very big, and it will take a long time for me to work around this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to everyone who's shared with us. We have one more speaker, and that is Seth Goldstein. Appreciate everyone being here and learning and sharing love for Harvey. And Seth?
I want to speak a little bit about the last 9 years. The last 9 years haven't been simple. In many ways, the stroke is a demarcation line. Harvey before, Harvey after. The Harvey before, as we heard, is vibrant and active. He's the beloved biology teacher by day, the creative, passionate Jewish educator by night. It's the Harvey of the Chevy Caprice with a glove compartment filled with kippot and a Sfam cassette blasting on the radio. It's the Harvey of camping trips, of scuba diving, of yodel-kadodel societies, and middle-of-the-night drives to Brandeis. In our house, these latter adventures were known as Whitman plans. Spontaneous, irrational, chaotic plans that made perfect sense to Maddie and to Harvey, but were objectively nuts. When we close our eyes, this is the Harvey that most of us still see. Then there's the Harvey of the last 9 years, the Harvey of quieter conversations, the Harvey who held court from his armchair, the Harvey of dreams unrealized, but never, ever diminished. This is the Harvey we wish we hadn't had to meet, the one who robbed us of the Harvey we had known our entire lives. And yet in many ways, in the most important ways, these two Harveys are not two, but one. Because when you strip away all the frenetic and joyful energy, what truly defined Harvey was that he lived his values out loud, authentically, with pride. And that never changed until the moment he left us, those values defined him. I want to speak today about one of his most cherished values, perhaps his most cherished value, and many touched on it, his deep Jewish and Zionist commitments. Growing up, the Whitman home pulsated with Jewishness, with Jewish music, with Jewish activism, with Jewish conversation. In the Whitman home, Judaism and Zionism were full contact sports. The raucous Passover seders, the frequent trips to Israel, the Jewish melodies, the Divrei Torah, the searching inquiry into important Jewish and Zionist subjects. My brother recalls one Erev Pesach on which Harvey called the Soviet embassy and shouted over and over again, "Let Anatoly Sharansky go," until they hung up on him. Jewishness lived out loud, authentically, with pride. Jewish living and Jewish homeland were the great commitments of Harvey's life, And so many of us in this room, for so many of us in this room, our own Jewish commitments were shaped by Harvey's passion and example. He also shared those commitments with more than a few unsuspecting strangers with whom he would eagerly strike up conversation. "Where is Harvey?" was the most frequent refrain. Probably immersed in a conversation with a stranger, Maddie would say. Or as my father would say, "I don't know, it wasn't my turn to watch him." Because a passion for Jewish living and for Israel is something we shared, it was invariably the centerpiece of all of our conversations. Even in our last armchair visit in April, Harvey wanted to know what was happening on the ground in Israel. He often spoke about his dream of visiting his homeland again. It was easy to dismiss this idea as the unrealistic fantasies of a man not 100% of sound mind, but I never understood them this way. What is a dream, after all, if not the aspirational expression of our most important convictions and desires? He was telling us that if he could, he would. And more than that, that we should, because we can. And when he took his last breaths this past Shabbat morning, he held in his hand a stone taken from a garden near my home in Jerusalem, and he held in his heart the Jewish memories and places that shaped him. In so doing, he was reminding all of us of what mattered most to him and what should matter most to us. And so is it any surprise to see the commitments and values of his children, their spouses, and his magnificent grandchildren? The Jewish lives they've chosen, the Jewish families they've built, the Jewish joy and meaning they make and spread. It is exactly as he intended it. It is exactly as he dreamt it. And now a word to all of you, to Maddie, to Danielle, to Michelle, to Michael, and your beautiful tribes, to our dearest friends who are our most cherished family. I've been accused by my family of conjuring up more than a few Whitman plans of my own over the years. It was a Whitman plan for sure that had me landing in Tel Aviv from Rome yesterday morning and turning around to New York in the afternoon. Spontaneous, irrational, chaotic, just as Harvey would have done, just as Harvey deserved. My parents would always say of these crazy plans, "You spend too much time with the Whitmans growing up." But the truth is that there's no such thing. Spending time with the Whitmans, spending time with all of you, has been among the greatest blessings of my life, of all of our lives. And we are together with you in this moment of grief, just as we are together with you in so many moments of joy. Yehi zichro baruch. May Harvey's memory be an enduring blessing.
Thank you, Seth. You all are the proof, although it still doesn't seem possible, that such a man should have been amongst us, that a person could have imagined a life and have brought it to pass, and to see the success of future generations coming afterwards, to have the values and the joy and the love that Harvey had exist in his family and in all of his students and everyone who is here and who has known him, as one of his teaching colleagues commented, directly or indirectly, the teachers of your teachers being yours as well. I don't need anyone to tell me, well, there was that one time that he did this and it really wasn't very nice. I'm sure that something must not have been perfect. Seth just mentioned about the illness of the last 9 years, certainly not perfect, but when we think about the values, the essential Harvey that was always there and that continues to be there, it's hard to say that it's exactly imperfect either. Baal Shem Tov said that a person comes into the world and lives for 70 or 80 years and may have come into the world just to do one favor for one person. One kind act may have been the defining feature of a person's life that made their life the part of God's tapestry of creation that it was necessary to place in that time and in that space. And Harvey, I think, as you've heard, was here to do one act, but many times over, the greatest of the mitzvot, you might say, the mitzvah of Ahavat Yisrael, of loving Israel, of loving the Jewish people, of loving their homeland. Now, when we say Ahavat Yisrael, when we say that someone is an Ohev Yisrael, a lover of Israel, that isn't to say that they are ignorant or uncaring about the rest of the world, other people. Clearly, we know as a teacher, as a man of science, as a man of learning, that he had a great care for others besides in our Jewish community. To be a lover of Israel, to be a lover of the Jewish people, is to love all of the world. It is to love the creator of the Jewish people. If one had to choose between loving God, which is a mitzvah, and loving the Jewish people, which is a mitzvah, one should love the Jewish people, for in so doing one is also loving their creator as well. And so one is also loving then all of the creation of God and loving the Jewish people. But one has to come from a certain place in order to express that love in the world, to know how to operate, to have a care for others in sense of love is not to ignore their faults or their flaws, not to pretend that everything they do is okay, but it teaches a way to approach a person, to guide them, to note that when they do make a mistake or when they are falling short of their potential, that the worst thing to do would be to make them feel bad, to make them feel isolated, to make them feel less than. These are the things that very often cause people to make bad choices in their life. And Harvey was the person who would never, ever do that. His love for Israel, for the Jewish people, for Judaism was such that he was always hopeful that you could become that better person, that greater person, that lover of the Jewish people and their values themselves. He would, and I can say I experienced this directly, would speak to the things that you had done right, speak to the things that you were doing well, to encourage you so that in those places where maybe you hadn't succeeded as much and where you had fallen short, that you could see that you had the ability to grow and to improve and to become greater and better, to fulfill the potential that Harvey knew that God had placed into you. And that, I think, is one of the greatest things that a teacher can do, is to make you feel good about yourself, not in some way which you're being flattered or you're being humored, but to make you feel good about the accomplishments that you do have, because a good teacher can see that any student has accomplishments that are valuable, that are invaluable, but then also can lovingly encourage you to do more, to do better. And that was, I think, the greatest piece of the love for Israel, that the love for Judaism and the Jewish people that Harvey had. Heard the story. He was born in 1946 in the Bronx to David and Faye, lost his father at a young age. He was a student in the yeshiva of Rabbi Ephraim Oshri, for those of you who know, was a great scholar whose opinions for living a Jewish life during the time of the Holocaust, he was a Holocaust survivor, are a tremendous insight into human nature? How do you hold on to your values when everything about you is being stripped away? Something of that same spirit was there in Harvey's life as well. After his father died, his mom moved the family out to be close to her sister, to the hinterlands of Long Island. There, aided by his aunt, by his older brother, Larry, of blessed memory, who we heard mentioned, and also by families around him, the Levine family, who became like a family to Harvey. He grew up and turned into this person that we are here to celebrate today. He went off to school. He came back every weekend. Apparently, the greenhouse survived that he was not watering the plants for when he was down seeing Maddie, but he didn't seem to deter him. This tremendous legacy of love and of teaching we've heard expressed through all of his colleagues here and all the other people who are here to learn about him, to share what they learned from him. He became a rabbi, as you know, later in life, but I think it was necessary that he do so because he had lived in a way that a rabbi could only hope to aspire and achieve, and to breathe Jewish joy and Jewish love into the lives of those who one meets. And so had he not chosen to become a rabbi, we would have had to have made him one anyway, I think. He had these wonderful grandchildren. I recall how impressed I was with them the time of his mother-in-law's passing, and he was a devoted son-in-law, most certainly, too, thinking about the way that they had already taken on these values that Zadie had given to them, and now we see years later even more so. And I have to say also, oh, did he go? Oh, where did Avi go? Oh, all right, so we can talk about him now while he's not in the room. That was just awesome, and if we're looking for someone to be carrying on that same Whitman energy, I guess we've got it. Oh, here he is. Excellent. So. Did you go to, are you in day school or Hebrew school? Go to Hebrew school? Hebrew school? You good for your teachers? Uh-huh. All right, very good. Excellent. So, for all of them, we see that their values, that his values live on, that his values of love, a love that is so caring and so concerned that it takes into account all of the ways that might be necessary to help to encourage you and to guide you and to bring the best out of you. That's the sort of love that we want to have. That sort of love for Jews and Judaism, the Jewish people, and for Israel was expressed in remarks by the early chief rabbi of pre-state Israel, Rabbi Cook, who said the following, with which I'll conclude my remarks for now. Speaking about these ideas, he says, "Listen to me, my people. I speak to you from my soul, from within my innermost soul. I call out to you from the living connection by which I am bound to all of you, and by which all of you are bound to me. I feel this more deeply than any other feeling, that only you, all of you, all of your souls throughout all of your generations, you alone are the meaning of my life. In you I live, in the aggregation of all of you. My life has that content that is called life. Without you I have nothing. All hopes, all aspirations, all purpose in life, all that I find inside myself, these are only when I am with you. I need to connect with all of your souls. I must love you with a boundless love. Each one of you, each individual soul from the aggregation of all of you is a great spark from the torch of infinite light which enlightens my existence. You give meaning to life and work, to Torah and prayer, to song and hope. It is through the conduit of your being that I sense everything and love everything." So we speak to Rabbi Chaim, our Rabbi Chaim here, and say thank you for the gift of life like this that you have shared with us, and that we feel your life, Harvey, also in this same way. And I hope that all of you will forever as well. This time I'd ask you to please rise as Cantor Kramer will join me in reciting for us the memorial prayer.
El malei rachamim shochen b'meromim hametzeyen menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina b'malot kedoshim kedoshim utehorim כזוהר הרקיע מסירים את נשמת הרב חיים בן תמיר ופגלה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו אנא בעל רחמים הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור מצרור מחיים ונשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום המשכבו ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Rabbi Harvey Whitman, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated for a moment. We're going to have some instructions. Allow me to mention to you that should you be moved to do so, donations can be made in Harvey's memory to the following good causes. The American Cancer Society, in memory of the chief Yodel Kadodel, they'll know what you're talking about. Rabbi Harvey Whitman Religious School here at Temple Isaiah, to the URJ Crane Lake Eisner Camp, and to the American Friends of Natal, the Israel Trauma and Resiliency Center. There's information available about Shiva as well. Shiva is taking place in a number of different locations for today and tomorrow, though it will be at 16 Sussex Lane in Stony Brook, the family's home. Today, 7 to 9, with Minyan at 8. Tomorrow, 2 to 4, and 7 to 9 with Minyan at 8. And then at various other locations for the balance of the Shiva period. So please do consult the information that's been shared to find out about those addresses and times. We have some honorary, oh, sorry. Nope, Anthony knows what he's doing, sorry. So.